To solve this data sufficiency question, let's go ahead and take a look at each statement separately first, and then together if needed. Before diving into the statements, let's take a look at what the question is asking. On the number line above, is the sum of P and Q negative? So if we think for a second, the sum of P and Q being negative, the sum could be negative if both numbers are negative, or the sum could be negative if one number is greater negatively than the other. So we just need to determine whether we can actually conclude either of those things from the given statements. Let's go ahead and let's dive into the first statement. So statement 1. We're told that P is negative. So if P is negative, that's some value less than 0. We don't know what the value is. And if we think about what Q could be a positive number, Q could be 0. So there are actually a couple options here. The first option is, what if we have 0 here and say Q is 5 and P is negative 2. In that first case, the sum would be 5 plus negative 2, which would be positive 3. And in that case, we could answer, is the sum of P and Q negative? The answer would be no, because it would be P plus Q would equal negative 2 plus 5, which equals 3. And that would be not less than 0, so no. And we can answer the question. But another option, suppose we clear this guy. Let's go ahead and clear the whole thing. If we choose other values, since again we only know that P is less than 0, suppose we can keep that same scenario, or maybe 0's even over here. We have no idea. We don't know what Q is doing. So Q could also be negative, and in which case, if both P and Q are negative, then P plus Q would definitely be less than 0, and the answer would be yes. So since we can't definitively decide, because it really just depends on the values and where Q happens to be, we can't answer this question with statement 1. So statement 1 alone is not sufficient. We can rule out answer choice A and D. Since alone, it doesn't work for us. It's not sufficient. So moving on, let's go ahead and let's check statement 2. Statement 2, we can check in a similar manner. Let's use our number line as we go through. We're told that Q is negative. So if Q is negative, that means that 0 is somewhere over here. Q is not equal to 0, so it's definitely to the left of 0 on the number line. And no matter what values our Q and our P are, that means P is definitely going to be less than 0 because it's less than Q. And the sum of those will be the sum of two negative numbers. And the sum of two negative numbers is definitely going to be negative. So in this case, yes, no matter what our values for P and Q are, the sum of them is going to be negative. So we can definitively answer the question with statement 2 alone. So this statement alone is sufficient. Statement 1 alone is not. Statement 2 alone is. And if we take a look at our answer choice B says statement 2 alone is sufficient, but statement 1 alone is not sufficient. And that would be our final answer choice, is answer choice B. And we could rule out C and E.